Bodies, bodies, bodies. 3 provocations. Provocation 1. Bodies. Bodies have always intrigued the human being, and this in divergent ways. Bodies have been painted on the walls of prehistoric caves. Bodies have been tortured and incarcerated. Bodies have been painted themselves and trained to perform particular activities, like giving birth to a child, sitting still in order to listen for hours to a master, or handling a machine that produces cars. Bodies continuously have been framed in time and space, but they also have tried to escape those very same frames, to jump out of the ordinary and mingle in new ways. Bodies have been recalcitrant and revolutionary. Bodies have been all of that, and much more. Since a very long time, historians have become intrigued by this swirl of limbs and chests, hands and legs, trunks and heads, feet and backs, toes and eyes, skins and breasts, genitals and brains. Historians have been very successful in analyzing this vertiginous amount of movements, gestures, postures, inclinations and outlooks. All of their hard, meticulous, and above all, scientific work led to an often disturbing image of what has been done to bodies and what bodies have been doing. Their work led to written, printed and digital texts, where the shivering, belching, copulating, studying, working, playing, weeping and gazing bodies were fixed to paper, to a particular constellation of pixels. Undoubtedly, a lot has been gained by plunging ourselves in the history of bodies, but perhaps also something has been lost, something important, the body itself. Provocation 2. Bodies. Since a long time, historians of education have been intrigued by bodies. Abnormal bodies, for instance, and how these have been educated, institutionalized, transformed, and disciplined. These studies have often resulted in thought-provoking presentations held in marvelous and breathtaking conference rooms located at the 3rd floor of a monumental building. They have often ended up in elaborate PowerPoint presentations that contained wonderful images representing the rich diversity of how bodies have been treated in our past. Our studies also have led to well-structured and revealing videos that nowadays can go viral on the internet and are capable of reaching all people interested. Or at least almost all people interested. Most often unintentionally, it is the sound of our voices, the color and shape of the images we project, the location used in order to present that ends up in somebody's not being able to understand, not being capable to grasp, not being gifted to follow. It of course does not stop here. One could say it only starts here. For what about all those bodies that for whatever unclear reason have been born in places where there is no unrestricted access to online repositories, digitalized libraries or expensive book chapters published by well-known publishing houses? What about the bodies who for one reason or another cannot gain access to knowledge by typing, clicking, pushing buttons, scanning screens? In short, what about the less privileged bodies, the bodies that look, act, smell, taste and sound different than the normal ones? Is it possible to make sense of these bodies, and how can we spread this bodily sensitivity? Provocation 3. Bodies. Most of the time, the historian's body has been successful in accessing archives, in moving around the world, looking for traces of bygone events, in listening to the memories of other bodies, in touching the remains of artifacts. For a very long time, the innumerable movements of the historian's body found a peaceful spot behind a wooden desk. Flanked by packed bookshelves, the historian's movements were fixed on the pages of a small notebook. They were completed by the sound of a pencil being sharpened, the smell of a book being printed. For a very long time, the historian's movements seemed to have had the time to come to an end, to come to terms with the historian's mind, to look out for the right place to crystallize, to take the time to come to fruition. But what if bodies do not have that time anymore? When bodies are relentlessly urged to speed up their movements, to type faster, to think quicker, to swipe more rapidly, to scan speedier? What if someone would stand up and declare not that history would have ended, but that time itself would have disappeared? Jumping from pages to screen, from books to smartphones, from pencils and ink to tablets, undoubtedly contains many hopeful promises. But what when while we're jumping, time falls out of our pockets?